All right, I'm just doing a quick presentation about some interesting things that I found on YouTube. So this first one, I guess, I think it's filmed in Japan, but I'm not 100% sure. But it just basically shows like a cow being like lifted into the air and abducted. Let's take a look at it. So here we have a pasture, some cows kind of grazing, minding their own business. Then here, I don't know if you can see that, but this cow just gets like mysteriously airlifted. So I'm assuming there's a UFO up here somewhere and it has like some sort of a tractor beam. So let's take a look at that again. So cow's being airlifted, goes inside glowing UFO orb. They're kind of showing like which cow it is. Oh, that's awful. I have a theory as to why these gray aliens abduct cows, and I'm pretty sure you guys have heard of like cow mutilations. Oh, I forgot to introduce myself. This is the Black Gray Alien. I'm your host, and welcome any brothers and sisters that are watching. Yeah, so I think they might abduct cows to practice surgery. That's why you see all these strange cuts on cows and different kind of mutilations. My second theory of why I think gray aliens abduct cows is because the aliens have unusually large heads, and I don't think a gray alien can give birth to another gray alien. So they might give birth to each other like through the womb of a cow, because there's a lot of this cow cult stuff going on in ancient Egypt. And I think that the Greys were also in ancient Egypt. So they're just theories, practicing surgery on cows, and maybe Greys are giving birth through cows because the womb of a cow is like very large. And so that would accommodate a large head by a gray alien. The third theory is that they might genetically engineer each other, kind of make like an exact copy of each other, but that would limit genetic diversity. So I'm not 100% sure if they'd want to do that. But yeah, I just thought that was kind of funny that they would abduct a cow. Now the Japanese had a really interesting reaction to it. Like they weren't really fazed at all by this. They just found it to be rather amusing. This next one is basically some guy's driving on a Ford and he spots what looks like to be a UFO being transported. This is in the United States. So, I mean, I would have to say that that looks like a UFO. We know that Bob Lazar in Area 51 said the United States was working on back engineering UFOs. So he's showing you his car he's driving. It's a real car. And so this is a flatbed, and this looks like to be a UFO. It has a tarp over it, so we can't really tell. And then, of course, it has a police escort. Why they don't just fly it there? No, I'm just kidding. They don't fly the UFO obviously there because they could be working on it, might not be fully operable, and they just have to drive it. And of course, there's no underground tunnels for them to sneak that thing through. So they got to get on the highway and do it the obvious way. I think this is awesome footage, though. I mean, it looks like a saucer to me. I don't want to call it a saucer. It looks like an aerial craft of some sort. Like I said, it's underneath the tarp. It's kind of hard to tell what it is, but it's still awesome footage. Just to be driving down the highway and see that, and see it, that's a flatbed truck, and that's a UFO. And look how tiny it is, because if there's a guy in this semi truck right here, I mean that's kind of small for a human being. I mean you would hardly have any room. But if you were a 3-foot gray alien, that would be perfect. the perfect size for you. Because Bob Lazar did say that the entrance was very tiny and that you had to kind of stoop over to get inside the aerial craft. Yeah, but that's awesome footage. Zooming in. I mean, that's a great picture. It's 100% believable. And see right here, he even says it was followed by a police escort. So if it had nothing really valuable in it, why would it need a police escort? So obviously something was in this to where the government authorities felt that he shouldn't just be driving alone. The last one is this UFO lifts up a truck.
This footage from the highway's closed-circuit cameras gives a glimpse of what happened. The truck was momentarily lifted off the highway, then dropped back on the ground.
I'm not 100% sure about this one. I've watched this like a dozen times, and I'm not 100% sure.
However,
I just know that like this UFO lifts up this truck and it has like tractor beam mobility. This is in Europe somewhere. It's not in one of the English-speaking countries.
It was really bright.
So that trucker's saying that, he's driving down the highway and there was a light and it was really bright.
So fast. Suddenly the truck was in the air. I don't know. It was strange. I'd never seen something like this before.
So kind of the same tractor beam that lifted up the cow was kind of sort of the same tractor beam that lifted up the truck. But there's actually more to this video. They don't actually show all the video, but earlier in the video it shows like orbs like racing through tunnels and kind of down the highway, and they're really chasing after this truck. So I don't know what's in this truck, but these orbs of light wanted this truck like really bad. So I wanted to read a little bit from the book of Job. This is Job 28, 29. And it says, "From whose womb comes the ice? Who gives birth to the frost from the heavens?" The word ice, I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with the word ice, but the word ice is a play on the word Isis, from the goddess Isis. So it says, "From whose womb comes Isis." All right. So let me go to my over here. I'm going to enlarge that. This is just this Grey Alien Skinny Bob. I'm going to show you a video of that later. And I guess this is some of his partners. And so supposedly, I'm going to get back to the ISIS thing in Job in a minute, but so this is kind of a map showing like how the Grey Aliens travel the stars. So they kind of travel the stars like we travel a highway. And I think the Great Pyramids, the three pyramids of ancient Egypt, were basically like bumps on a map. Like if you're flying through this galaxy and you have an extraterrestrial craft, you could zoom in on the three pyramids and it would be like a map, directing you to the star system Sirius. And from Sirius, you can go to Orion's belt. And then from Orion's belt, you can go home to the Pleiades star system. So here it says womb of Isis. And of course, Isis gives birth to Sirius or, Ra. The next Job 38:30 says, "When the waters become hard as stone, when the surface of the deep is frozen, can you bind the chains of Pleiades? Can you loosen Orion's belt?" So if we go back here, okay, these are, the Pleiades star system is kind of seen as like a cluster of like change. They're called the Seven Sisters. And that's why earlier it showed you Isis, because Isis is hidden in the word sister. The SIS is short for sister, and the TER is short for star. So the word sister literally means Isis star. So it says, can you bind the chains of Pleiades? Can you loosen Orion's belt? So for any like high level esoteric, member of the occult that has intergalactic travel ability, the Bible is basically giving that person a map on which way to go. It says, can you bring forth the constellations in their seasons and lead the bear out with its cubs? So the bear is actually the constellation Ursa Major, but it's just called the Great Bear. And then if you go here, you can see the shafts of the pyramid leading to Orion, leading to Sirius, and then of course leading to Ursa Major. Now these shafts, because you got to remember, like, I don't think these people were like, these are billions of light years away. It would take forever to get there. But I think the Grey Aliens had designed the pyramids, and they'd put machinery inside these pyramids. And when it was time to leave, they would basically exit out these shafts. So the pyramid, and I'll tell this in a later video, but basically I think Giza is basically an ancient airport where people would come to Earth and have an earthly experience, learn different lessons. And then when they're done, they would just shoot out these shafts, either their consciousness or maybe some really tiny spacecraft of some sort, or just maybe their consciousness was shot along some type of light projection of some sort. But I mean, I think they were leaving out these shafts towards these star systems. I don't think these pyramids were just lined up with shafts pointing towards these star systems and nothing comes out the shafts. That would be kind of silly. So I think whatever extraterrestrials were here were leaving out these shafts, and this was kind of like a map. The pyramid is like a giant map telling you which way to go. Or if you're a traveler, like say from here, you can look down here and then look at the Giza pyramid, which is a map, and it'll tell you which way to go. Back to Job. It says, do you know the laws of the heavens? Actually, I do know the laws of the heavens. The laws of the heavens are basically physics equations that make up our reality, which can't be argued with. They're not fully explored, though, either, but they're pretty solid, like gravity and torque and inertia. It says, can you raise your voice to the clouds and cover yourself with a flood of water? Do you send lightning bolts on their way? Now, this is the one I like right here, Job 38:36. It says, who gives the ibis wisdom or gives the rooster understanding? That's interesting that they put in the ibis. And I think the reason why they put the ibis and associated with wisdom, because obviously an ibis is a beast, it's a bird. Birds aren't very smart, but it says, who gives the ibis its wisdom? And I think it's obviously talking about this ibis right here. Because remember, the head of Thoth is an ibis bird, and Thoth is the god of writing and what? I want you to tell me. The god of wisdom is the ibis bird. It's Thoth. He's the god of writing and wisdom. Let's type it in just to be 100% doubly sure. Okay, it says Thoth was originally thought of as a moon god, but if you read here, it says, and Thoth had less association with it and more with wisdom. So Thoth is associated with wisdom. See right here, it says Thoth, god of wisdom and science. So when you go back here to the book of Job, it says, who gives the ibis wisdom or gives the rooster its understanding? A rooster is something a little bit different. I don't know why they threw that in there. I'd have to make another video about why they would put the rooster in there. But the ibis and wisdom is definitely 100% Egyptian. So if you go back to Job 38:29, it's got all the Egyptian gods right there for you. It's got Ice for Isis. It's got over here, the Pleiades, Orion. Um, it's got Osiris in it. Whatever constellations these Egyptians represent, it's right there for you. And the last part of this video is I want to go over these gray aliens. Now, I guess this video was shot in the 1950s, and we're not 100% sure how authentic it is, but it basically shows like a group of gray aliens walking. But before that group walks, they interview a gray alien by the name of Skinny Bob. They call him Skinny Bob because, obviously the grays are skinny. So this is the craft that Skinny Bob arrived in. I think he has a crew of maybe 10 occupants. So he's just cruising along. He doesn't care about people in their boats or whatever they're doing. Here he is flying again. Somehow they got another picture of them arriving. Now, I think what happened is the United States actually shot this UFO down somehow. And so they crashed, and this was kind of like one of the bewildered survivors walking here. He's like, oh, man. Now, you got to ask yourself, how in the world, okay, so these aliens are supposed to be advanced and stuff. They're supposed to know about warfare. How in the world could the American military shoot down a UFO with all the UFOs' advanced technology? And I'm assuming it would have radar and be able to disable missiles. I think the only reason why the United States government would be able to shoot down a UFO is only if the United States had aliens that were already here on the ground. See, this is like kind of an injured or dead alien. So out of that crew, I think only about 5 or 6 survived. Or maybe Skinny Bob was maybe the only really intact survivor. And I don't think that these people would travel as far as they traveled just to crash near a military base. That would be too silly, because our military wouldn't even do something like that. Could you imagine our military going to like Russia and we got the president on there, or maybe a crew of scientists, and they just crash? I mean, I don't even think I've ever heard of that happening on the news. So I don't think these aliens would do it. I think there's already grays or some type of reptilian alien that's already here on Earth. And anything that interferes with its control, they basically use like secret high-tech weapons, and they just shoot these UFOs down. Because I've heard of a number of UFOs being shot down, and I was always thinking, like, how do they do it? Are these gray aliens not hip to like missiles? I mean, come on, man, you guys got to go home and like figure out how to deal with missiles. So look, this is one of the grays right here, up close. Again, we're not sure like how real that is, but we know that if we look at his skin is very pale. And so basically any pale human being is basically a hybrid pale gray. And so any pale gray alien that combines its DNA with ape DNA genetically engineers a pale human being, like Asians, Europeans, light-skinned Indians, light-skinned Arabs, light-skinned North Americans, like what have you. Anything that's basically light-skinned comes from a pale gray. And that'll give you pale skin. It'll give you sun deficiency. It'll also give you deficiency in your eyes. Like the sunlight will also hurt your eyes too. So they say supposedly like some grays came. Well, first they're going to demonstrate Skinny Bob. Again, this is supposed to be one of the survivors of that crash, but he's intact. He's wearing a black turtleneck. He has a really large head. Like, I don't know how in the world, I don't know if there's female gray aliens, but I mean, her womb would have to stretch to the ultimate maximum to let that head out. And I just don't think they can do that. That's why, like I was saying, I think they abduct these cows. And then when they get pregnant, they basically put their gray alien embryo inside of the cow, and then the cow because the cow's womb is able to expand, they're able to give birth to these grays. That's why the Bible talks so much about like cows and bulls and stuff like that in ancient times. Now, this is very fascinating. This is what makes this video kind of authentic in my mind. Like if you look at his fingers, he has actually like really long thumbs. Like the human being's thumb is not that long. And then his fingers are really long. And his legs are really long, but he has a short upper body. He's still wearing a long sleeve turtleneck and some type of black pants. And we don't know what the material of that clothing is. So I don't know if those gray aliens are at home weaving. Another thing that's fascinating right here is that look at the knuckle right here. You know what I mean? Like if this was CGI, somebody went through a lot of work to make this look real. But I think this might be real. I think just maybe it's kind of blurry and hazy. But I mean, the human hand is like that. You know, like if you look at the ape's thumb, I think when the gray alien was genetically engineering human beings, they just took the thumb from the wrist area, which would be here on the ape, and then just simply moved it here. And on the gray alien, I'm sorry, on the human being, your thumb is actually up here. It's closer to like the knuckle. And so on the gray alien, his thumb is even further back. So I don't know what kind of technological tools this guy controls to where he's evolved or adapted like really long fingers. Now, if you look at this guy, he looks kind of European, you know, in this part of his face. He looks like one of those, what do you want to call those people? He looks like one of those English people, you know, but one of the kind of dorky English people. So I'm not trying to call this alien dorky. I'm saying that like there's people that this part of the face kind of look like Mr. Bean. Like Mr. Bean has the same kind of smirky like facial expression. And then look at the eyes, like you can't even see into the eyes. So, but I think he blinked. So he must just have really huge black eyes, and his eyebrows must be really huge, but he's handsome. You know what I mean? And the gray aliens aren't ugly. Like people think the gray aliens are ugly. They're not. Any person that you would consider to be a dime piece or fine or really attractive or handsome, they get that from the gray alien. So basically, the better looking you are, the more gray alien DNA that you have. And so this thing at the top is basically measuring this fella's height. And I was actually never able to get this guy's height, but I'm assuming he's pretty short. Now, some other guys they claim show up later. I don't know, maybe to rescue him. They said that it was supposed to be part of some treaty or whatever. And like I said, I'm assuming that these gray aliens are from another star system. They're smart. They know that the United States had made treaties with the Native Americans, and they violated those treaties. No really advanced life form or culture would ever make a treaty, because a treaty is a trick. You know, it's the oldest Western European trick in the book. I mean, I don't know how many treaties the West has done made, even with itself, and violated, and with other cultures and violated. So I just don't see aliens making treaties with the United States government, knowing that the United States government has used nukes and is very militaristic. I don't think they would do that. Only way that a gray alien would actually make a treaty with human beings is if human beings had devastating like firepower, then they might do something like that. So here's some more footage of some grays walking. Looks pretty good. I did a small poll. I got a good 80% of people think, not 80%, but people think that with 80% accuracy that these videos are pretty authentic. And they look pretty good. This guy's staring right at the camera. And so they kind of end it with a full view of Skinny Bob. I mean, that looks pretty good. I mean, he's what's called a pale gray. You know, that's why I call myself a black gray alien, because I guess you could say my species of black people were genetically engineered by grays. But why they altered my pigmentation and gave me dark skin, I have theories behind that too. I think that blacks might have been genetically engineered as a kind of like a low level like slave worker, and they were given basically darker skin so that they would be able to work out in the hot sun and mine gold for the gray aliens or do whatever the gray aliens want, and their skin could take it. But that's a really nice tight outfit. Like I don't see any zippers or anything, so I don't even know how he got in that suit. But he basically has a really long turtleneck outfit, um, really long fingers. He don't look like he talks much, you know, so he might be telepathic. But this is a really good picture of him. I mean, this outfit looks like it's from like the 70s. So I don't know what they wear now, but it seemed like all the occupants pretty much had the same outfit. That turtleneck, long, all black. I mean, this looks pretty good. I mean, it's a little blurry, but it looks authentic. I mean, they're walking, they're kind of looking at the camera. I think it's pretty good. So I just wanted to showcase that about gray aliens. I believe that all human beings are hybrid gray aliens, and I'll be uploading more videos in the future. And I appreciate anyone that took the time to sit through this. I hope you enjoyed it. I tried to make it as entertaining as possible. Yeah, I'll end this in peace.